The dirt was still fresh on the grave when I saw Gerald Whitman make his move. He waited till the last handful of people had drifted away, murmuring half-hearted condolences as they made for their cars. I was standing there, staring down at the headstone like it might blink or say something. Something final, something helpful. It didn't. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. My name's Thomas Palmer. I'm 47 years old. I live just outside Olympia, Washington. That morning had been quiet, cold too. The kind of cold that didn't ask permission, just settled in your chest and made itself comfortable. Grandma Ruth had been 81, sharp as a tack. The kind of woman who didn't talk much but somehow always knew exactly what was going on. She didn't miss anything. I was just turning to leave when Gerald stepped up beside me, barely brushing my shoulder. He was in his usual suit, black wool, shiny shoes too clean for a cemetery. He didn't look at me, just kept his eyes forward, lips barely moving. "Thomas," he said low. "This wasn't natural causes." I froze. She didn't just go in her sleep. She knew something was wrong. "If you want the truth, come to my office tomorrow, alone. Don't mention this to your father or your brother. It's important." He paused just a second, then added, "It could be dangerous if you talk to the wrong person." My gut dropped. I turned to ask what the hell he meant, but he was already walking off, heading toward his car like we just talked about the weather. I looked around. My father stood off to the side with his wife Colleen. They weren't grieving. They were talking in low voices, tense, clipped. His jaw was tight. She kept touching his arm like she was trying to calm him down. It stuck in my head as I drove off. My fingers gripped the steering wheel too hard, and I barely noticed I'd missed the highway turn until I had to circle back. I'd come to bury my grandmother. Now, I wasn't even sure she'd died, the way they said. I pulled into my dad's driveway later that afternoon, still gripping the wheel like I was trying to snap it in half. The house looked like it always did. Neat lawn, 2 flags out front, porch lights still on, even though it was broad daylight. But stepping inside was like walking into a time capsule of forced grief. The air was thick with reheated casseroles and coffee that had sat on the burner too long. Voices were quiet, footsteps even quieter. Someone had put on soft piano music, probably thinking it'd make everything feel respectful. It didn't. Richard, my father, was waiting for me at the kitchen table. Colleen sat beside him, legs crossed, lips curled into something that barely passed for a smile. She had a folder in front of her, yellow legal size, bulging slightly. "Tom," he said, nodding toward the empty chair across from them. "Glad you came back. We just want to go over a few things." I sat down without answering. Colleen opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers, maybe 10 pages deep, clipped at the top. She slid them across the table with both hands, like she was presenting an award. "Routine stuff," she said. "Power of attorney paperwork. Your grandmother wanted everything tidy in case anything happened to one of us. It's just to protect the family." I picked up the top page and started scanning. It wasn't printed yesterday. It had her signature from weeks ago. I saw mine typed under a blank signature line. But a paragraph near the bottom stopped me cold. Something about substitute authority and another clause about medical or mental incompetence. I read it twice. "If I'm deemed unfit," I said slowly, looking up. "What does that mean?" "It's standard language," Richard said quickly. Too quickly. "Nothing to worry about." Colleen's smile got tighter. "It just ensures we can take care of everything if you're unavailable or overwhelmed. This stuff can get stressful." I put the papers down. "I haven't had time to read any of this. I'm still processing the funeral." "Of course," Richard said, but Colleen didn't say anything. She just kept watching me, chin tilted slightly, eyes pinned like she was waiting for a cue. "I'll look through it later," I said. "Right now, I'm wiped." Richard nodded, already folding his hands like it was settled, but I saw the way Colleen's jaw twitched. That night, I crashed in the guest room, couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Gerald's face, heard his voice, and then the little things started bubbling up. Grandma locking her bedroom drawer after 50 years of never bothering, switching banks without telling anyone, telling me not to sign anything without reading it 3 times. She even said it once at breakfast, out of nowhere. "Don't rush into anything just because someone says it's easier." I thought she was just getting paranoid, or tired. Now I wasn't so sure. I got up around 2 in the morning and walked the hallway. The house was dark, quiet, but as I passed the kitchen, I saw a light flick on. Colleen stood by the fridge with a glass of water. She saw me, didn't flinch. Couldn't sleep? She asked. I didn't answer. It's a lot, but it'll all settle down soon. She turned the light off and walked away without waiting for a response. My skin crawled. I went back to bed. The second the sun broke, I got in my truck and headed for Grandma's house. I didn't bother with breakfast or coffee. I just needed out of that place before Colleen opened her mouth again. The drive was short, familiar. I'd done it 100 times growing up. Summer visits, birthdays, holidays. But pulling up to her driveway that morning, the whole street felt hollow. Her garden was still neat, wind chimes barely moving in the breeze, like the house was holding its breath. I used the spare key from above the porch light, still in the same ceramic frog she always joked about changing, but never did. The front door creaked open into silence. Inside, everything looked exactly how she left it. Couch cushions puffed up like someone had just stood, TV remote on the armrest, grocery list stuck to the fridge. Her slippers were still by the recliner. I moved fast, quiet. Upstairs, her bedroom smelled faintly of lavender. I paused just inside the doorway. The bed was still made military tight, curtains drawn halfway, and the little ceramic cat collection still lined up on the dresser. Then I went for the second drawer of her nightstand, the one she started locking near the end. She didn't hide the key well. She'd shown me once, years ago, said, "If I ever forget, it's behind the photo frame." Still was. I unlocked the drawer. Inside was a stack of folders, one small box, and a thin red notebook wrapped with a rubber band. I started with the folders. Bank records from the last 2 years, insurance policies, printouts of emails, one with Colleen's name in the subject line, another with a balance transfer that didn't make sense, $5,000 wired to an account I didn't recognize. But the notebook, that stopped everything. Her handwriting was careful, slower than it used to be, but still neat. The first few entries were just dates and symptoms. Tea tasted bitter again, felt dizzy after lunch, hands trembling, heart racing. Then came names. Colleen's, over and over. Colleen insists on bringing all my meals now, won't let me cook or shop. Asked Richard if we could get a new housekeeper. He said Colleen had it handled. Don't feel safe anymore. Told Thomas not to trust them blindly. And then this, underlined twice in shaky ink. If something happens to me, tell Thomas to be careful. Protect yourself, baby. Please. I read it 3 times. My hands went cold. This wasn't forgetfulness or confusion. This wasn't just an old woman imagining things. This was fear, documented, over weeks, maybe months. She knew. She damn well knew someone was trying to hurt her, and no one listened. I sat on the edge of her bed, notebook in my lap, trying to stay steady. Every little off moment from the past year suddenly clicked together. Her flinches, her vague warnings, how she kept trying to talk to me when no one else was around. And now she was gone. I put everything back in the drawer, took only the notebook, and locked it behind me again. Walking out, I stopped in the hallway and looked at the old family photos on the wall. Most of them were crooked, like always, but one, the one of her and me when I was 7, both of us covered in flour, was perfectly straight. She probably fixed it before she died. I shut the door behind me and stood on the porch for a long second. By the time I pulled into Gerald's office parking lot, the sky was dark and the building looked half abandoned. Just one light burning upstairs, second window from the left. I killed the engine and sat for a second, gripping the steering wheel again like it might keep me grounded. The air smelled like wet asphalt and pine. I got out and went up the narrow side stairs he always told clients to use after hours. Door was cracked an inch. He was expecting me. Inside, the place was dead quiet except for the low hum of a space heater. Gerald stood behind his desk, jacket off, tie loose. Across from him sat a man I didn't recognize. Early 50s, wide shoulders, dark button-up, beard trimmed down to stubble. He stood when I walked in. "Thomas," Gerald said, "thanks for coming. This is Leon Foster." Leon gave a short nod. "Your grandmother hired me 6 months ago." I shut the door behind me. "Why?" "She got suspicious about her health. Noticed her tea started tasting different. Said her heart would race after meals. Started documenting everything. She didn't trust her doctor, didn't trust your father or Colleen. She called me after doing some online research about private labs and toxicology." He pulled a folder from his bag and slid it across Gerald's desk. I opened it. Inside was a short report. 2 pages, no letterhead, just clean print and small graphs. I didn't understand half of it, but one line near the bottom stood out. Presence of foreign compound not consistent with listed herbal ingredients. Sample integrity confirmed. Leon tapped the line with his finger. We still don't have a full ID on the compound, but it doesn't belong in anything store-bought. I stared at the paper. How the hell did no one catch this? She didn't tell anyone but me, Leon said. Didn't even want Gerald to know at first. Said she needed to be sure she wasn't imagining it. Gerald opened a drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope, sealed with a single strip of tape. He slid it toward me. She left this for you. Specifically said to give it to you only if you came here by yourself. I opened it carefully. Inside was a flash drive and a short handwritten note. I recognized the penmanship immediately. Thomas, if you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. Don't panic. Trust Leon. He knows what he's doing. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything sooner. I love you. My stomach twisted. I gripped the flash drive like it might vanish. Gerald stood up and walked to the mini fridge in the corner, grabbed a bottle of water, handed it to me without a word. I took it, sat down, nodded for Leon to go on. He opened his laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and hit play on the first audio file. It was her voice, soft, weak, but calm. April 12th, she said. Slept poorly. Tea tasted off again. Dizzy spell around 11 a.m. Told Colleen I wasn't hungry. She brought food anyway. Didn't eat it. Noticed she got upset when I asked what brand the tea was. Said she didn't remember. I think she's hiding something. The second file was worse. April 28th. Woke up with chest pain. My hands shake when I write. I tried to call Thomas, but he was traveling. Richard never calls anymore. Colleen watches me when I eat. Like she's checking I'm swallowing it. I don't feel safe. I had to look away. Leon shut the laptop. There are 8 more like that. She was methodical. Wanted a full record in case anything happened. Said she didn't want her death chalked up to old age if it wasn't. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. Leon leaned forward. You need to understand what comes next. This isn't just about grieving anymore. You're standing at a fork in the road. Walk away, pretend none of this happened, go back to life as it was, or dig in. But if you dig in, you need to know. You could be putting yourself at risk. Gerald nodded slowly. They didn't just want her gone. They're after control of everything she left behind. And they're not done. I left Gerald's office with the flash drive in my pocket and my jaw locked so tight it hurt. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, counting how many lies I'd missed. By morning, I had a plan. Not a perfect one, but enough to get me back in the door without raising alarms. At breakfast, I sat across from Richard and Colleen, nursing a half-warm mug of coffee. I've thought about the paperwork, I said, keeping my tone flat. I'll sign. I just want to go through it page by page, carefully. Richard exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all week. That's reasonable, no rush. But Colleen, her eyes twitched, just barely. She nodded, but her fingers tensed around her fork like she wanted to stab the table. Of course, she said. Take all the time you need. That afternoon, I made a few calls. Leon's team was ready. Over the next 2 days, while Richard ran errands and Colleen played hostess, 2 of Leon's guys posed as contractors and fixed a broken cabinet hinge in the kitchen. Another came to check a wiring issue in the living room wall. By the time they left, 2 cameras were installed, tucked into the upper corners, buried in the crown molding, clean, undetectable. I played the part, smiled when they handed me fresh copies of the documents, asked dumb questions, took breaks mid-reading, delayed signatures with made-up errands and family calls. And every hour that ticked by, Colleen got tighter. She started hovering more, watching how much coffee I drank, asking if I was sleeping okay, offering to make meals just like Ruth used to. I can make the tea she liked, she said once, setting the kettle on the stove without waiting for my answer. Chamomile and lemon. That always calmed her down. I smiled and told her I was cutting back on caffeine. She didn't smile back. By the 4th day, I caught her checking my room. Door cracked open when I came back from the store. She said she was just dusting. Every conversation felt like walking a tightrope. If I showed too much interest in the paperwork, she got chatty. If I pulled back, she got too helpful. I stopped talking to Richard unless I had to. He seemed relieved I wasn't arguing anymore, like things were going back to normal. At night, I lay awake listening to the house, the creaks in the hall, the fridge cycling on and off, my own heartbeat in my ears. Leon texted me once. Camera feeds look solid, don't push. Let her come to you. So I waited. I let her believe she was winning. I let them both believe I was folding. But every hour in that house was building towards something. The morning it happened started too calm. Sunlight came through the kitchen window, hitting the table just right, like any other day. That alone put me on edge. Colleen was already dressed, hair done, movements sharp and focused. "You look tired," she said, reaching for the kettle. "Why don't I make you some tea? Your grandma's favorite. Might help settle you." I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't show it. I sat down at the table and picked up my phone, pretending to scroll through emails. I kept her in my peripheral vision, every move. "Sure," I said. "That sounds nice." She filled the kettle and set it on the stove. Her back was to me, but I saw her glance over her shoulder twice, checking if I was watching. I wasn't. At least, that's what she thought. The kettle started to heat. She reached into a cabinet and pulled down the same teapot Grandma used, the blue one with the chipped spout. My jaw clenched. Then she did something different. She stepped to the side, out of the kitchen's main line of sight, right where the camera would still catch her. She opened a small drawer near the pantry, the one she always said was junk storage. From it, she took out a tiny vial, clear, no label. She unscrewed the top and tipped it over the teapot. A fine white powder slid out. Not much, just enough. My heart slammed so hard, I thought I might choke on it. My hands stayed still. I kept my eyes on the phone like nothing had changed. She stirred the teapot slowly, deliberately, then capped the vial and slipped it back into the drawer. When she turned around, her smile was already in place. "All done," she said. "I'll pour you a cup." She set it in front of me, steam curling up between us. The smell was faint, floral, but there was something else under it, sharp, bitter. I reached for the cup, then accidentally knocked it with my elbow. The tea spilled across the table, soaking into the placemat and dripping onto the floor. "Damn it!" I said, jumping back. "I'm sorry." Her face flashed, just for a second. Anger, pure and sharp. Then it vanished. "It's fine," she said too quickly. "I'll make you another." She wiped the table, faster than necessary, then refilled the kettle. This time, she didn't step aside. She stayed right there, watching me watch her, daring me to say something. She poured the second cup and slid it toward me. "Drink it while it's hot. That's how Ruth liked it." I wrapped my hands around the mug, but didn't lift it. The heat pressed into my palms. "You're not drinking," she said. "I will," I said, "just letting it cool." Her smile thinned. "It won't work if it gets cold." I looked up at her. "What won't?" She laughed, short and forced. "The calming effect. You've been so tense." She leaned closer, too close. I could smell her perfume now, heavy and sweet. "Go on," she said. "Drink it." I took a breath and raised the cup halfway, then paused like I'd forgotten something. I should eat first. Tea on an empty stomach messes with me. Her eyes hardened. "Ruth drank it every morning before breakfast." "I'm not Ruth." Silence dropped between us. Thick. The kettle clicked as it cooled. Richard's footsteps sounded faintly upstairs. Colleen straightened, smile snapping back into place like a switch had been flipped. "Whenever you're ready," she said, backing away. "Just don't let it go to waste." I set the cup down carefully. My pulse was still racing, but inside, something settled. The cameras had everything. The vial, the powder, the pressure. I finally had what I needed. I pushed my chair back and stood up. I left the kitchen with the tea untouched and walked straight into the living room. Richard was in his recliner with the TV on, flipping through channels like nothing in the world had changed. "Turn it off," I said. He looked up, surprised. "What's wrong?" "Now?" He hit mute. The silence that dropped in was loud as hell. Colleen walked in behind me, voice syrupy. "Is something going on?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. One of Leon's camera feeds popped up. Clear shot of Colleen tipping powder into the teapot. I held it out. "This is what's going on?" Richard leaned forward, squinting. Colleen froze. "What the hell is that?" he asked. I swiped to another clip, her saying, "It won't work if it gets cold." The expression on her face, her voice, all of it. "You want to explain that?" I asked, turning to her. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then suddenly, "That wasn't what it looked like," she snapped. "You're twisting this—" "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't even try it." I dropped Grandma's notebook on the coffee table with a loud slap, then the lab report, then a copy of the audio recordings from the flash drive. She knew, I said. She knew weeks before she died. She wrote everything down. She recorded her voice every single day because she was scared of what you two were doing to her. Colleen's face cracked. She turned on Richard like a switchblade. He told me to, she yelled. I didn't want to go that far. He made me. Richard didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed on the notebook. She begged you to take care of her, I said to him. And this is what you did. He looked up at me, pale and small. You don't understand what it was like. She was going to cut us out. Everything was going to you. So you killed her? My voice cracked. You poisoned her over money? She wasn't herself anymore, he said, too calm. She was confused. Colleen just helped the process. Colleen let out a choked laugh. Helped the process? Are you serious right now? You were the one who said we couldn't afford to wait. I took a step back, disgusted. Behind me, the front door opened. 2 unmarked cars pulled into the driveway 10 minutes ago. Leon had told me exactly when to expect them. Now, 3 plainclothes detectives and 2 uniformed officers stepped into the room. Thomas Palmer? One of them asked. I nodded and pointed at the table. That's the evidence. The recordings, the lab reports, written statements. Everything's there. Colleen backed up against the wall, hands shaking. I didn't do anything. I didn't. Ma'am, the officer said, stepping forward. We're going to need you to stay right there. She slid to the floor, sobbing. I was just doing what he said. I swear. He told me she was dangerous. Richard didn't move. He didn't run, didn't protest. He just sat back in the recliner and let it happen. Another figure appeared in the hallway. My younger brother, Scott. He looked like he'd just woken up. Sweatpants and confusion written all over him. What the hell is going on? He asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The house exploded into motion, officers separating them, reading rights, collecting evidence bags. One pulled the small vial from the pantry drawer, sealed it, labeled it. Cameras were unplugged and boxed up, tagged, logged. Scott stood there watching as our father was led out in handcuffs. His face was blank. No anger, just disbelief. Colleen was screaming now, trying to grab one of the detectives, sobbing that it was all a mistake. No one listened. I stepped out onto the porch and let the cold air hit me. Inside, I could still hear drawers opening, bags zipping, boots on hardwood. Everything they built, the lies, the power plays, the secrets, collapsed in one morning. And I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt done. The next time I saw Richard, he was in a jumpsuit, shackled at the ankles, standing in front of a judge who barely looked up when he read the sentence. Richard Palmer, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No reaction, not from him, not from me. I didn't expect one. Colleen sat at the defense table, hands folded, eyes red. She'd flipped 6 weeks in, gave up details, signed statements, handed over everything she had, including the bottle, the money transfers, even the name of the doctor they tried to bribe. That deal bought her a reduced sentence, 15 years. Eligible for parole in 8. She sobbed when they read it out. I didn't flinch. My brother Scott was 2 rows behind me in the gallery, sitting like someone who didn't know where he was. We hadn't spoken since that morning at the house. He kept saying he had no idea. Maybe he didn't. I wasn't ready to figure that out yet. When court adjourned, I walked straight out the double doors, past the cameras, past the microphones, past the whispers. I didn't go back to the house. Not for clothes, not for keepsakes, not for closure. I'd already handed the keys over to the non-profit Leon connected me with. They specialized in transitional housing for women leaving domestic violence situations. Grandma's house was stripped, painted, and rebuilt from the inside out. They kept her rose bushes. They named the kitchen after her, Ruth's Place. I showed up once during renovations. Didn't go inside, just stood on the curb and watched the workers haul in beds, bookshelves, a stack of toys for the playroom. It finally meant something again. I didn't stay in Washington. I packed what little I cared about into the back of my truck and drove south until the air got warm and the trees looked different. Settled just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. Small house, good people. I work mornings, sleep better, don't talk to many folks, don't need to. Scott texted a few times. Short things, updates, silence in between. We're not enemies, but we're not brothers the way we used to be. There's too much between us now. He never blamed me, never asked for anything. I think he just wanted a version of the story that didn't make everything fall apart. Too bad. That version doesn't exist. I cut off who needed cutting, the distant cousins who defended Richard, the ones who asked if Grandma maybe exaggerated things toward the end. Gone. I didn't keep any of their phone numbers. Don't want them. The flash drive and notebook are locked in a fireproof box in my closet. Not because I want to relive it, but because I refuse to forget it. What they did was quiet, slow, calculated. It almost worked. Almost. But she didn't just leave me memories, she left me a trail. And when the moment came, I followed it all the way through. My place in Arizona was nothing fancy. Small porch, 2 bedrooms, one of them empty. Quiet neighborhood. Nothing but wind and coyotes after dark. That's exactly how I wanted it. I didn't pretend like none of it happened. I lived with it. I just didn't let it rot me out. Most days I kept busy. Early shifts at the auto shop, walked the trails behind my place after dinner. I liked the rhythm of things. Predictable. Clean. There wasn't much I brought with me from Washington. Just clothes, a couple books, and one box marked kitchen. Inside was Grandma's teapot, the blue ceramic one with the chip in the spout. Same one Colleen used the morning she tried to end what they started. I didn't throw it out. I washed it, dried it, put it up on the shelf above my stove. Didn't matter how much damage they tried to do. Some things were built to hold. Scott called every couple of months, usually late when he knew I'd be home. We kept it simple. Updates, weather, nothing about the trial, nothing about Grandma. We didn't reopen things that never fully closed. I still think about her, he said once. I do too, I told him. Just not the way you think. We didn't say more after that. Didn't need to. I stopped it from going any further. My grandmother, she had guts. She wrote everything down, knowing it might not save her. She kept her mind sharp while her body gave out. Left me the pieces, trusted I had put them together. And I did. I made damn sure her voice didn't disappear into silence. When people ask if I'd do it again, I don't hesitate. Every single step. Because there's something worse than watching someone you love fade. It's knowing they didn't fade at all. Someone pushed them. I'll never be okay with what happened. But I'm not haunted by it either. I gave it an ending. I got the truth out where it needed to be. And the damage stops with me.